Hello, everyone. My name is Braden. This is Airless Quill 9, and welcome to part 2 of Cultists. This is where we're going through the 2024 Monster Manual and reviewing every stat block within. And in this video, we are continuing our coverage of the Cultist stat blocks. In part 1, if you have not seen it, we went over the Cultist, Cultist Fanatic, and Cultist Hierophant stat blocks. So please watch that video if you have not seen it yet, because it should have come out before this one. But in this particular video, we're going to be talking about 4 new stat blocks, particularly the Aberrant Cultist, the Death Cultist, the Elemental Cultist, and the Fiend Cultists. So the reason for these particular stat blocks being present is that, as it's said in the 2024 Monster Manual, cults can organize around any mystical tradition, but many serve supernatural beings. Cult members often have abilities that are tied to the forces they worship. So we have some stat blocks to represent that. And these stat blocks are all challenge rating 8, but they are all quite distinct from each other. So let's go ahead and get to it and talk about these new stat blocks. So first up is going to be the Aberrant Cultist. This is a medium or small humanoid that is neutral evil. They have a armor class of 14, an initiative of +7, 137 hit points, a speed of 30 feet. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 10, a dexterity of 19, a constitution of 12, an intelligence of 16, a wisdom of 18, and a charisma of 15. They're also proficient in intelligence and wisdom saving throws. For their skills, they have an arcana of +6, a perception of +7, and a religion of +6. They have 90 feet of dark vision and a passive perception of 17. They know common and deep speech as their languages, and they have telepathy of 30 feet. And of course, as I stated before, this is a challenge rating 8 creature. So they have 3,900 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +3. For its actions, the Aberrant Cultist has a multi-attack. This allows it to make 2 tentacle lash attacks, but it can replace any attack with a use of Mind Rot. So the tentacle lash is a melee attack roll with a +7 to hit and a reach of 10 feet. It deals 1d6 +4 slashing damage, plus 4d6 psychic damage. If the target is a large or smaller creature, it has the grappled condition with an escape DC of 14 from one of 2 tentacles, and it has the restrained condition until the grapple ends. Mind Rot is a wisdom saving throw DC 15, and it targets one creature that the cultist can see within 90 feet. On a failure, the target takes 68 psychic damage, and the target has the poison condition until the start of the cultist's next turn. And on a successful save, they take half damage only. Finally, for the actions, the Aberrant Cultist also has a spellcasting action, allowing it to use Wisdom as its spellcasting ability to cast one of the following spells. This has a spell save DC of 15, and at will, they can cast Detect Thoughts and Minor Illusion. And finally, the Aberrant Cultist has a reaction section, allowing them to cast Counterspell twice per day, using the same spellcasting ability as spellcasting. So yeah, some pretty interesting options here. Not a whole lot in the spell casting section. These are pretty much just flavor spells, except for Counterspell. But as we all know, at this point, Counterspell has seen some changes from its 2014 equivalent, so it does work quite differently than 2024. But overall, the Aberrant Cultist dealing some pretty decent damage, 21 damage per attack with the Tentacle Lash, and the Mind Rot is a pretty decent Wisdom saving throw attack. So yeah, some pretty interesting things going on here. But yeah, that is the Aberrant Cultist in its entirety. So yeah, we have an aberration themed cultist to play around with if we need to. Next up, we have the Death Cultist. This is a medium or small humanoid, neutral evil. They have an armor class of 17, an initiative of +4. They have 127 hit points, a speed of 30 feet. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 19, a dexterity of 12, a constitution of 18, an intelligence of 12, a wisdom of 16, and a charisma of 14. They have ability score proficiency saving throw proficiency rather, and constitution and wisdom saving throws. So some pretty decent bonuses there. For skills, they have insight of +6, perception of +6, religion of +4. For their gear section, they're wearing splint armor. That's why they have the high armor class. Senses, they have a passive perception of a 16. Languages, they know common. They have, of course, a challenge rating 8. And in their action section, they have a multi-attack that allows them to make 3 attacks using Dread, Scythe, or Deathly Ray in any combination. So Dread Scythe is a melee attack roll with a +7 to hit and a reach of 10 feet. On a hit, it deals a 1d10 +4 slashing damage plus 2d10 necrotic damage, and the target can't regain hit points until the end of its next turn. Deathly Ray is a ranged attack roll with a +6 to hit and a range of 120 feet, and it deals 40d10 necrotic damage. Finally, spellcasting allows the cultist to cast one of the following spells using Wisdom as a spellcasting ability. Spell save DC 14, and at will they can cast Speak with Dead and Thaumaturgy. So some flavorful spells there. Finally, as a bonus action, the Death Cultist has Spirit Whale, which has a recharge of 5 to 6. This is a Wisdom saving throw DC 14. It affects each creature in a 20-foot emanation originating from the cultist. And on a failure, each target takes 4d6 psychic damage and has the frightened condition until the end of its next turn. And on a success, they take half damage only. So yeah, some pretty interesting things here. There's a lot going on here. It very much fits the death theme, especially being a cultist that wields a scythe. That's pretty interesting. And the fact that the Dread Scythe prevents the target from regaining hit points until the end of its next turn, that's pretty significant. Because it can make 3 of those attacks per turn. So there's a lot happening there. And with the addition of the Spirit Well bonus action as well, making targets frightened and dealing psychic damage, there's just a whole lot going on in the stat block. So yeah, pretty interesting option here, especially for a death cult themed cultist. Next up, we're going to talk about the Elemental Cultist. This cultist particularly makes sense if you're trying to represent a cultist that follows the Princes of Elemental Evil or the Elder Elemental Eye or some other evilish themed elemental type entity. But the Elemental Cultist is a medium or small humanoid, chaotic evil. They have an armor class of 16, an initiative of +4. They have 135 hit points. They have a speed of 30 feet. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 18, a dexterity of 12, a constitution of 16, an intelligence of 14, a wisdom of 18, and a charisma of 12. They also have proficiency in constitution and wisdom saving throws. For their skills, they have arcana +5, they have perception of +7, and they have religion at +5. And in the gear section, they have chainmail. For senses, they have a passive perception of 17. For languages, they know common and primordial, and they are a challenge rating 8, which makes sense. For their actions, they have a multi-attack, allowing them to make 3 attacks using Elemental Flail or Elemental Claw in any combination. So Elemental Flail is a melee attack roll with a +7 to hit and a reach of 5 feet. On a hit, it deals 66 plus 4 damage of a type chosen by the cultist: acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. Elemental Claw is a range attack roll with a +7 to hit and a range of 120 feet, and it deals 40-10 damage of a type chosen by the cultist from among acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. Additionally, if the target is a medium or smaller creature, the cultist can move the target up to 10 feet straight toward or away from itself with that Elemental Claw, so that's pretty interesting there. Spellcasting allows the cultist to cast one of the following spells using Wisdom as the spellcasting ability. Spell save DC 15, and at will they can cast Elementalism and Mage Hand, so 2 thematic cantrips. And finally, in the reaction section, the Elemental Cultist has a reaction called Elemental Absorption, which it can use once per day. Its trigger is that the cultist takes acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. And then in response, the cultist gives itself resistance to that instance of damage, and it gains 10 temporary hit points. So, yeah, this potentially has this has the potential to essentially negate whatever damage it was about to take. So that's a pretty interesting reaction. And honestly, its attacks are quite potent with that Elemental Flail and the Elemental Claw. So a lot happening here, and honestly pretty interesting and thematic stat block for an Elemental Cultist. So finally, we can move on to the final cultist stat block here, and this is the Fiend Cultist. This is a medium or small humanoid, which is neutral evil. They have an armor class of 16, an initiative of +5. They have 127 hit points. They have a speed of 30 feet. For their ability scores, they have a strength of 19, a dexterity of 15, a constitution of 16, an intelligence of 12, a wisdom of 18, and a charisma of 10. They have proficiency in constitution and wisdom saving throws. For their skills, they have a perception of +7 and a religion of +4. For their gear, they're wearing breastplate. Senses, they have dark vision of 90 feet, which is unimpeded by magical darkness, and they have a passive perception of 17. And for languages, they know Abyssal, Common, and Infernal. And of course, they are a challenge rating 8 creature, which means they have 3,900 experience points and a proficiency bonus of +3. In the action section, the Fiend Cultist has a multi-attack, allowing it to make 3 Pact Axe attacks. This is pretty interesting. So the Pact Axe is a melee attack roll with a +7 to hit and a reach of 5 feet. On a hit, it deals a 1d12 +4 slashing damage plus 3d8 fire damage. So pretty interesting attack and dealing a impressive 23 damage on a hit. Finally, in the spellcasting section, the cultist can cast one of the following spells using Wisdom as the spellcasting ability with a spell save DC of 15 and a +7 to hit with spell attacks. At will, it can cast Scorching Ray at level 5. That means it's shooting 6 rays, which is quite significant. Also at will, it can cast Thaumaturgy, and then twice per day, it can cast Fireball at level 6. So that's also quite potent there. Finally, in the reaction section, the cultist can cast Hellish Rebuke in response to the spell's trigger, using the same spellcasting ability as spellcasting. So there's a lot of damage potential in the Fiend Cultist stat block, and yeah, it's quite scary, honestly. The Pact Axe is pretty potent for a melee option. Scorching Ray at level 5 is quite significant at ranged, and Fireball at level 6 is also pretty significant. And finally, Hellish Rebuke also gives additional damage options, so making sure that cultist is dealing out that additional damage and protecting itself whenever it gets hit. So yeah, this is a pretty scary challenge rating 8. and I have used it before, and it is quite potent and scary in combat. So yeah, a lot going here. But yeah, that is the final cultist that we get to talk about. So there are a total of 7 cultist stat blocks, 3 in the previous video and 4 in this one. So if you want to see all the cultists, please watch those 2 videos in tandem together. But yeah, that is going to be it for this particular video. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed these 2 videos together. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. It shows me that you guys are supportive and want to see more content like this. So thank you all for that. In our next video, we are going to finish the last of the sea monsters in the monster manual with the Cyclopses. So yeah, keep an eye out for that video tomorrow. So until then, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. See you later.